Hello, anyone out there? Welcome, and just sit tight or skip ahead just a tiny little bit because we're going to get started momentarily. Further ado. All right, hold on. Minor technical difficulties. All right, welcome any and all to episode 12 of Views and Paradox, in which we'll be talking Palm Springs, which was just released on Hulu by The Lonely Island. I am your host, John Olson, and I'm joined, as always, by the lovely, the talented Rochelle Racine. Welcome. And joining us once again is Victor Adame. Welcome, Victor.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah,
Happy to be talking about Palm Springs.
Nice. Have you ever been? Have you been to Palm Springs?
I have a few times, yes. It was exactly as it seemed.
It's just as advertised.
Yes, very accurate.
A void from which there is no return.
Victor and I are both in Southern California, so the access to Palm Springs and Joshua Tree is quite simple for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've driven through Palm Springs, I think, but I've never stopped anywhere in Palm Springs because it was just like a way stop on the way to Joshua Tree, which I've been to many times, but never Palm Springs. I always kind of wonder, like, what's the deal with this place, and I still kind of wonder that.
Same.
I'm not mad at it, but it's not something that I would like actively go visit a few times a year.
Gotcha.
Exactly. I feel that.
Before we get into it, I just want to remind any of viewers early that this is a full spoiler discussion. This show, we kind of do it on the premise that you have already watched the movie. This is a new movie, so I'm just putting that reminder out there kind of extra. If you haven't seen it, it's on Hulu. Go there, watch it, pause this, go over there for an hour and a half, come back, and and then join us again. So a lot of times we start with just kind of a breakdown of some facts from the movie. If you want to take us through that, Rochelle?
With pleasure. So, synopsis plot: when carefree Niles and a reluctant maid of honor, Sarah, have a chance encounter at a Palm Springs wedding, things get complicated as they are unable to escape the venue themselves or each other. Director is Max. Help me out here. Barbacow. Writer is Andy Sierra. And just real quick, both of them, this is probably the biggest thing they've done. Correct me if I'm wrong. Neither of them have huge filmographies, which I find very interesting. And then it is starring Andy Samberg, Christina Miliato, J.K. Simmons, and although she is just a featured character, I love her. So shout out to Dale Biggie.
Nice.
And I think no awards or nominations. Yep. It's new. Do we want to talk about the budget and everything?
Yeah. Do budget, and then I guess we can talk about the acquisition.
Okay, so the budget was only $5 million, and it took a total of 21 days to shoot, which I find amazing.
It's really fast.
And then, can you take the acquisition of it, because I didn't even know this until you started.
So this was bought at Sundance. So last year it was on the film festival circuit. I'm not sure if it premiered at Sundance or if it just screened there, but it was acquired at Sundance by Hulu for a record-breaking amount. The previous record had been $17.5 million. This was $17.5 million $2.69 because the Lonely Island loves a good sex joke. They were like, we could get the record. I saw an interview where they're like, we knew we could get the record, and at first they were like $1, and then they talked about it and they were like 69 cents. So Hulu came back and acquired it. And so there was kind of a lot of hype around this film. It was supposed to get a theatrical release, which would have probably been good for Hulu. They're trying to kind of compete on that same level with Netflix and, with Amazon. Like, Amazon's got all the money in the world. And Netflix has, like, really kind of earned its stripes trying to get into the theater space. And so Hulu was trying to follow that. But, of course, the pandemic hit. So this does not get a theatrical release. But we do get to watch it. And, was this worth the sort of groundbreaking amount of money that they paid for it? It's a good question. I don't know if we can ever deduce that in a dollars and cents fashion based on streaming, finance setups. I forgot. I'm not sure the word I'm looking for. But I don't know. Was it a worthwhile purchase? What do you guys think? Did you like it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I would have gladly paid $17.5 million for this.
Right.
Yeah. Let me just get my wallet and just fish that out. It's a lot of money. The movie you said only cost $5 million to make, which is pretty good. Which is like a pretty small budget. So the idea that they could then make 17 million, they like immediately made their money back and then some. I think that this movie looks it looks good. I feel like they spent their money well. Like for a cheap production, it's a really solid script, and I think that you can see where the money went. Like there's no like the budget's not inflated. Like they clearly had that wedding venue, which wedding venues, if anybody has ever been a part of one of these things, are crazy expensive. And even just getting a venue for 21 days and like making it look like a wedding and housing that size of a cast and just like sort of the below the line costs were probably the majority of the costs. I feel like even Andy Samberg probably didn't make much of that money because the idea is that it's his production company, so he made money off of the sale. I think just really well made film, kind of worth the purchase, I guess.
Victor and I both wanted to watch it again. Like
We did.
Yeah.
It was that good. It was just so enjoyable. I feel like it's something you could just keep rewatching and rewatching.
I watched it a second time. I watched it again this morning because I don't know what it was about it where when I first saw it, I kept thinking about it. And like, it's not a crazy complicated film. In fact, I would actually say that it's incredibly simple when you get down to it. But it's just so well executed. Like it's so tight. It's like this is another one of those films. We've had a number of these where like the script is just it's so tight. There's no waste, I feel like. There's no fat. Despite being about a very repetitive situation, I felt like there's no wasted scenes. There's no wasted kind of a time at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yourself.
Mm-hmm. What's that? Well, he's a returning guest, so that's why.
In case people haven't seen the episode.
Yeah. Tell us a little about yourself, Victor.
Okay. I'm a student at UCI. I'm going on my last year at UCI. I'm a film student, and I'm also an actor and screenwriter, aspiring. And I take acting classes with Rochelle. She's a wonderful actress.
Thank you.
And
So are you?
yeah.
Well, him and I have done a couple scenes together. We have good chemistry.
We did.
Speaking of chemistry, let's discuss the chemistry between the two leads, Niles and Sarah.
I was Sarah. And like Kristen Milioti, as soon as I finished this movie, I was like, why don't I know who this person is? Like, I did. She did look familiar though. I was trying to figure out where I'd seen her. When I looked on her IMDb, the thing that stood out was that she is, of course, the mother on How I Met Your Mother.
No way.
Yeah. So she's only in the last season. Yeah. Which I wasn't like a faithful watcher of that show, but I enjoyed episodes when I saw it. I thought a lot of good jokes per minute kind of a show. But yeah, so I think I'd seen her there and kind of recognized her from that. So she has been around for a minute, but I feel like this is a breakout performance for her, right? Like she really, like both as a character and as a performance, I feel like kind of steals the movie, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of sort of their dynamic and all that, Victor?
I thought it was really good. I didn't like you guys. I didn't know who she was. Of course, I knew who Andy was, but I feel genuinely, I think she really stole the show. I feel like her character was kind of more of the lead. Well, they're both the lead, but I feel like sometimes he kind of felt supporting and that he was kind of new to this routine. And I feel like because we were following her realization of the way this whole world works, I just found her a really interesting character.
Yeah,
And
the
I feel like that was one
story
of the biggest
the story
takeaways.
follows her whole journey in this
Yeah.
loop. So like, for anyone who decided to attempt to follow this conversation without watching the movie, it is a Groundhog's Day style premise where they are stuck in the same day over and over. And the movie actually begins on her first day in the loop. Even though we're from Niles' perspective, it's really like all about Sarah's journey. And it does switch to her POV a couple of times in the movie, like away from Niles. So I do think it is like it's a very much a shared story.
I just wanted to comment really quick on the scenes where she just kind of, her fear or like the fact that she just kind of lost it or is very uninhibited, like really spoke to me. I like when originally was it the beginning
Her like breakdown.
Yeah, when Roy shoots the guy or Niles with the bow and arrow, and like the reaction to that, and then like her breakdown, and then like when she does the cop killing situation, and like, very things like that.
I just clipped him.
I was so impressed with her ability to just like completely exude these crazy, intense emotions.
Yeah, the day. So yeah, the day. Like, I'm gonna jump ahead later into the movie, where like the day after they sleep together and she's like having that like breakdown is so interesting because she goes from like depressed to catatonic to just manic, like, and then like she just has this sort of moment of clarity and then jumps in front of a truck. Like it's so like that whole sequence is really something. I loved it, and she pulls it off because it really is like you could just be like, what the fuck is going on? But I felt like she pulled it off in a way where you could, when you kind of see what she's waking up to every day, it felt like, oh yeah, her loop is fucked up.
Yep, and that's where I kind of realized, wasn't there, that she was sleeping with her soon-to-be brother-in-law.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's where they tell it to us, right?
Yeah, like right after, right? It's like
Yeah. So we wake up and then he comes in. They don't even show us his face, but we hear him say like, "I think you need to go." And it's pretty obvious that it's him at that point. I wasn't like
you guys seen that coming. You said.
Yes, I saw that coming.
Saw that coming?
What I think, you know what tipped me off to it was when she tells the sister the secret. She's going to do the selfless act. which obviously was not a selfish act because she was doing that to get out of the situation.
Right.
But that was the moment that I went, she's sleeping with that asshole. But I have for these things.
I didn't notice it, but on my second watch, it is very well set up. I will say there are lots of little clues. Even just in the editing in particular, there are some good clues there. Like it cuts from at one point her waking up to like him, and then it like pans over to the couple, but like there are these like very kind of subtle hints at what's going on, which I really appreciated on the second watch.
Victor, did you were you shocked by that, or did you?
I was, yeah. I mean,
Yeah?
now that I'm thinking of it, like John is saying, I feel like there are clues, and I feel like this is definitely one of those movies where you just watch again and see new things every time. But I did not expect any of it. Honestly, I was completely shocked. But I feel like that's what made it good.
Yeah.
I think it was real, yeah.
To be fair, like I just said, I have a gift for these things.
Yeah, maybe that's.
You're like, I saw through you.
Yeah, I didn't expect it, but it made perfect sense, like completely sense. Yeah.
Totally. Oh shucks, I just.
Uh,
Let's talk about the editing.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stunning. Just like you were saying, the setup and the way that they would send these clues and cut to the clues was beautiful.
Yeah. I liked the cutting back in time, because we'd be following Niles, and then like when she comes out and starts throwing the beer cans at him in the pool, and it cuts back to her morning. I liked that element, and I liked when they did it again later, like after she's disappeared, which we'll get to later. But I liked those cutback elements, and I just think from an overall editing perspective, like the movie is very well structured, and like it's very simple in its sections, where it's like first day, and then it's like her realization and like coming to terms, and then it's them just living in it for a minute, right? And then it's like depression, and then it's her half of that story, and like then we essentially are like wrapping up. And I just like I loved kind of how simple and effective the structure was in the editing. I thought Roy was set up really well and paid off really well. I liked the cuts to when they're having discussions and she's like interrogating him about the everyday, and like the sleeping with, like, who is he slept with, like the dad, when he's like, oh yeah, your dad. And then it's just like, oh, we're getting like essentially her imagination of what's happening. So I liked things like that. I thought it was really, really slick. I don't know. You guys have other thoughts, Victor?
Actually, I was just thinking right now, again, with the whole rewatchability factor of it. I know going into the movie, of course, I knew that it was going to be about time travel and all of that. But I'm really curious to watch it again to see how Niles played the very first scene. Because in the very first scene, you're not really supposed to know what's going on. You don't know that he knows he's living the same day over again.
Yeah.
So, John, you watched it again. Do you feel like Andy Samberg did that well?
I will, because I was gonna ask you this before Rochelle brought up the editing. I was gonna just ask about the beginning and what you guys thought about the first day, because I knew immediately, like I knew vaguely that this was based on a premise of a looping day, and like almost immediately, if not before the awkward sex scene of like when they have the discussion when he's on the bed, for me it was like crystal clear that he's done this a lot.
Really?
And I really like how he played it, because the conversation is very telling. Like the script is very clever in the way that it's written, where he's just done all this before. I had my suspicion from the first line where he says that's a nice leg, and she immediately agrees to have sex with him, that he's like figured out already what to say. Like he knows the best line, right? And then the dance floor scene just like solidifies that like he's memorized the entire dance floor. So I thought it was really well done, and I thought that, you know, I bought it. His character was so consistent, kind of throughout.
I went in blind. I had no idea what this was about, which
Awesome.
I typically
amazing, yeah.
I typically like to do that for films, unless like obviously like something, you know, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I did not pick up on that at all, and like when he gets shot by the arrow, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
I did not expect that. I'll be honest.
And then he went into the cave, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then he wakes up, and I went, oh, it's Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I vaguely knew what was going on, but for some reason I felt like it was just. Have you guys seen The Graduate? Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah. The leg shot.
Yes, I felt like it was. Yeah, I don't know why it reminded me so much of that in the beginning. Like
probably because it's supposed to.
Yeah, and then when J.K. Simmons came in at the bow and arrow, I don't know.
What the fuck was that?
I know.
He's just like hunting him for. Well, and I think it's like. So we know, having seen the whole movie, that he's slept with her a lot. And so he's probably taken her to this exact spot a bunch of times, and it's worked out just fine. But like on this particular one, Roy, who is a wild card in this whole situation, you know, provided enough change that like he couldn't control what was going to happen at that point. God, Roy is such an interesting character. Go ahead, Rochelle. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that I found myself, and maybe I missed this, but I was very not concerned, curious as to how Niles got into this situation to begin with, and they never touch on it. Oh, and you know what's even more interesting is that Sarah never asks him. Like, she asks him all these questions, and not one of them is like, how the hell did you end up in this? You know, which I thought fascinating. So that's something that you have to deduce for yourself, which also is something that this film throws at you in the end. You know, you have to kind of.
Yeah. And there's this sense that, like, he's been there for a really, really long time. You know, he's just so over it. Like, his whole personality is based around the fact that this is his universe. It's just this one day. Well, what were you gonna say, Victor?
I was gonna say, okay, so do you guys know who June Squibb is, the actress? She's the old lady in this movie.
Oh yeah, the grandmother.
Nebraska. Yeah. So I was wondering, does she have anything to do with it? Because she tells one of the characters something towards the end.
It's in my notes. It's in my notes actually, because there's two. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if a whole bunch of people are in on it, if a whole bunch of people are experiencing this. I mean, I don't know.
It's really hard to say.
Yes.
Right.
I think he knows about it somehow. Yeah. You know,
it feels kind of like but also not in the same way, right? Because she says good luck getting out. Like, how would she even know? You know, like, you know, it's like, did she come later into the loop, or is she? I feel like it's some kind of symbolism that I've not yet figured out. Because the other big question is what's with the dinosaurs?
I have the answer.
You have the answer?
First of all, they're sauropods, which is like a brontosaurus or something similar. I think I'm a paleontologist. FYI.
Sauropods.
Yeah, sauropods.
They look I thought they were brontosaurus.
They are brontosaurus. So sauropods are like the branch that those.
Got it. It's like saying it's a type of bear or something. Got it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things.
The genus, that's the word.
The writer is obsessed with Jurassic Park, and since this is his first like bigger production, he was like, I'm gonna have fucking dinosaurs in there. Straight up. Yes. I mean, of course he tied a message to it, but it's not very clear. But Andy Samberg in a interview says that it represents our like personal baggage and hopes and fears and foibles, which is like your like eccentricities, basically, or your like weaknesses, in case you don't know what that word is. And it proves to him that we make our own reality. So like when they first see them in the desert, it's like, this is our reality and we can kind of do with it what we want almost. And then when they bring it into the end, it's also just like a nod to that, which I found really cool.
That they brought something good with them.
Yeah.
Essentially. Because it was like, it is a moment that they have together, right? That's like a good moment. And he even calls back to it. The night we saw the dinosaurs, you know, it was like the night magic happened. And I guess I kind of look at the dinosaurs like they represent the magic that is part of their relationship, right?
Right.
And it's like that magic came out of the loop with them, right?
Yeah. I personally think it represents love because the entire time.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. The entire time I was watching this, I was like, the way they're going to get out of here is love. Completely, obviously was wrong, but in a sense, I was right because that's their love for each other, like put them to be like in this team to get out of there, and they end up together, right? And what they bring from this is love.
Yeah. This is such a better love story than Groundhog Day. I just want to say.
What did you?
Yeah, Victor, you look like you had something to say there.
I have not seen Groundhog's Day, but I don't know why I don't understand how the dinosaurs represent that, or sauropods. Is it sauropods? Is that how you pronounce it?
Sauropods.
Like
I
dinosaur.
always thought of sauropods.
Like,
Yeah, like, yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, I was completely confused by that. So does that mean that this is not set in our reality then?
Right.
Well, see, here's the other thing is like it, if you wanted to, like, I do think it is a symbolic thing like me and Rochelle are talking about, but if you wanted to kind of play the literal game, which is always fun, I do think it could be a quantum glitch, right? So like the very thing that allows the loop to exist in the first place could also be breaking down reality and bringing in unknown elements into reality, which could explain the dinosaurs. It could also explain the old lady. You knew her name, like a good person. Yeah.
Someone who did his research.
Yeah, like someone who did his research, not just looking at the IMDb page right now. Yeah, June Squiff. So it could kind of explain these things that like it could just be like a break in the quantum physics, like in the structure that like, you know, time has gone on this weird loop, but it could also, for all we know, have incorporated things from other times. So I think if you want to kind of play the literal game, you could kind of use the quantum theory aspect of this movie. Which, can we talk about that since we're there?
We'll try.
I loved that they went there though. Like, I loved that, you know, he was so resigned to this. He felt like he'd tried everything, but like obviously he hadn't tried everything. And she was like, fuck that. I'm going to approach this in the most logical way that I possibly can. I'm not going to just dick around. I'm not going to, you know, just like be resigned the way that Niles is. I'm going to straight up learn quantum theory and quantum physics in order to try and make sense of this parallel universe that we are trapped in. I love that it went there, and I thought it spoke a lot to her character.
It made me fall in love with her more because, I mean, obviously she's an intelligent, sharp young lady.
She a boss.
So, yeah, she's a boss. So I really loved the use of that in many ways, and I am the first to admit I don't understand or anything. I'm an artist, not a scientist.
No, nobody understands it. That's like the point. Like when she has that Skype conversation with the guy, you're not supposed to understand that sentence.
Clifford B. Johnson is his name, and he is a real quantum physics professor at UCLA.
I'm so glad that they did that. It was a really good
I was wondering
piece of trivia.
That, yeah.
Nice. Way to do your homework, Rochelle. I know. We need some extra subscribers for that right there.
the reason I did that was because, like, as an actor, I was like, that is a heavy, like, dialogue. And so it made me want to go see, even though it was like a line, it made me want to go see like who this actor was, because again, that's heavy dialogue. And of course it wasn't an actor. It was someone who can actually talk about these things. So
I do love the scene where she's like trying to study quantum physics and she's just like and then wakes up in the bed. It's like fuck. It's like it's too real.
Yeah, it's real. I was like, me too, girlfriend, me too. Let's see.
Okay. So kind of going back, I had referenced Groundhog's Day, and this kind of alludes to how I titled the episode this week, that this movie changes the loop again. And I find it interesting. This is like the fourth movie that I can think of, at least the fourth like popular film that has this exact premise of we're going to live the same day over and over and over. And what I find interesting about them all, and Groundhog's Day is the most famous, but more recently, in the last decade, there has been Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt action film. Then there was Happy Death Day, and now there's this movie Palm Springs. And what I find interesting is that they all have this sort of recycled premise, is that they all have found ways to make it their own and make it very different from the others. And I really like that. Like, this is probably closer to Groundhog's Day than it is to like Edge of Tomorrow or Happy Death Day, but it's still very much its own film, and it does some very different things with the premise. I really liked that they're somehow like, without being direct remakes, we're able to take this premise and like make it new each time. There's something about it that like demands that you have to do that almost.
I think it was done well. One thing that I think this movie stands out from the other three, and correct me if I'm wrong, because the only one I've seen recently is Groundhog's Day, which by the way is an episode, and we'll put a title card right there for you to watch it. Where I think that this one was far, I don't want to say far more logical, but there was, other than one stupid thing, which my traveling ass can't get past, where that it was very logical, and there was no like logical leaps pretty much as far as like the quantum physics and like the situation.
Yeah, they approached it from a very modern standpoint, right? Yeah. Victor, did you have something?
I was just gonna ask Michelle what it was that
Is it the drive to Texas?
What was your thought about it? You said you had one problem with it. Yeah.
This is so stupid, but they keep going to Joshua Tree in the evening, right? And I was like, how are you getting in there? Okay, fine, you're going through the daytime. But then at the very end, they go in and it's late at night and they come in on a motorcycle, Andy and that dude. They close that park and there are rangers making sure you don't fucking get in.
They don't directly say that it's the national park though.
But it looks like it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but all that desert kind of looks the same out there.
Those of the Joshua trees and then the rock formation.
It has to be close to the wedding venue though. It has to be close to the wedding venue because he goes there with multiple people. He takes them there.
Those trees, I mean, you guys know this, those trees are in a very specific part of that area, right? You can't just kind of like hop over to like Joshua Tree. Like, you gotta go up that hill or you gotta go through the back, dude. Like, come on, man. Like,
I just took it that this was relatively close by to the wedding venue and just like off the roadside because they're able to get there really quickly from the wedding venue. Like, I mean, and do so very, very drunk, as though they could walk there, right?
You get there. It's like a 40-minute drive from Palm Springs, and you could. The way that they were pretty reckless, you could get there faster. And like
they were reckless.
Yeah, they were reckless. As someone who knows this area intimately, like maybe it was
that's like any movie where you know an area intimately, though. Like nobody's ever geographically on point.
At least the intentions were good.
Yeah.
Like that's a national park. That would never happen.
That's funny.
That's it. I even texted your dad and my aunt and was like, "Do they close it? I want to make sure."
Yes. For viewers out there, my dad and her live in Joshua Tree.
Makes us cousins, by
Yes.
the way.
Um, yeah, like, I actually haven't seen Happy Death Day, but I remember the trailers and I read some reviews about it. And it's like a horror take on it where she has to like solve her own murder to kind of escape her loop, presumably. And I've heard the sequel takes it in bizarre directions. So I actually do kind of want to get around to that one at some point. And seeing as how we've already done Groundhog's Day and now Palm Springs, we might have to at some point get around to these other ones.
And
but-
then maybe do pairing. Okay, Victor,
Yeah.
because you were actually the one that asked
Yeah.
this question. Were logics thought through? So I want you to weigh in for sure on this. Do you think?
Okay, yes, the only thing that I was kind of confused on is, okay, so when one person dies or falls asleep or whatever, they wake up in the next day, right?
Yeah.
But what happens to the other person who's also in that world or in that current day? Like if it was the three of us here and I fall asleep, do you guys know?
So okay, yeah. So they keep going, and then they will eventually sync up with the other person. At least they'll sync up in terms of the time that they woke up naturally, because she clearly wakes up before he does. So like she's always got a head start on him, no matter what. But what I was wondering along those same lines is she's looking at him asleep on the night that they bang finally. And I was like, if she woke him up,
Could he wake up?
Like, could he wake up? What would
Exactly.
that? And then what would likely happen is he would have an interaction as though, holy shit, it just ended. But then as soon as she went to sleep, she would still go back, and then he likely wouldn't remember any of that other interaction. Like, there's something very interesting that like there's an additional play space in this premise of like unexplored interest, I think. What were you going to say, Michelle?
That's what I was just confused about.
I was not going to say anything.
Okay. Did not.
Grab my coffee.
Grab your coffee. Yeah, I just thought it was, I love these kind of premise. I love multiverse theories and like that sort of thing. But it, I think that in general, they are just going into new parallel realities every time that they wake up. They're like resyncing, right? They're stuck in a sync situation as opposed to like an actual rewinding of time. They're just like resyncing. But something interesting that happens is that Roy will never meet them again. Right? Like Roy will get out of his day and it will follow whatever the day he picked to be the last day. And they will have already been people who didn't get to experience the loop, right? At least not yet. I mean, he could theoretically be the person that shoved Andy Samberg into the portal in the first place, right? Like, we don't know.
Maybe it was the grandmother. Like, who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? But yeah, there's kind of this interesting, weird effect of like the layers kind of adding on top of each other, and that like, in theory, they always get out of the loop, right? Like some version of them always wakes up and keeps going.
Right.
So.
For sure.
Right.
Because they will become a part. They're still in the reality of the people who are not in the loop.
Yeah.
Right. So you just like erase them. That's not how it works. At least in my very minute understanding.
Right. So their conscious seems to be like, quantumly entangled with like this moment in time that keeps resetting them. I feel like the logic's got to be pretty bonkers to justify, and like I bet that quantum physicist that they have in the movie would even have a hard time like really explaining, and he could probably poke holes into it, I'm guessing. But it is like, it does give you some fun food for thought that like and like new food for thought that I feel like other versions of this story haven't done yet.
Yeah. Does that make more sense to you, Victor?
Yeah, it does. Now that I'm thinking, I feel like the whole movie is just full of a whole bunch of different things that you as a viewer can interpret how you want. Like, oh, what's the meaning of the movie? Is it being lonely? Is it love? Is it that there's no purpose to life? So I feel like the whole thing, it just,
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's a movie about questions.
Yeah.
Then
And
just brought that up. Go ahead, and then I got a question.
yeah. Yeah. Cause like in like Niles has clearly done so much that like he's had this thought. He's like, you know, he even kind of offhand he's like, oh yeah, I never thought about multiverse theory. Like clearly he spent a period of his time thinking really hard about this because he hints that he's done terrible things and that he has to live with this knowledge that like that might persist, you know, that like the things that I've done in some world continue, and like there are universes in which I'm a serial killing monster or whatever it is. Like he does kind of hint that like he's done awful things and that you carry those memories with you. I find that like a fascinating thing that, you know, he's been in it. I feel like he's been in it 1,000 years. Like it just seems like, you know, he says he can't even remember what he did. It's crazy. What's your question, Rochelle?
Can you guys stand the idea of being alone?
No one can stand the idea of being alone.
Maybe romantically, I should say.
Um,
John, I guess you don't. But like,
Actually,
oh, go ahead, Victor.
I was just gonna say no. My answer is no. What about you?
I really struggled with this, which is why I wanted to bring it up, because like I love being alone. Of course, like I'm a human fucking being and I do need like social moments in my life. But it was like almost, I was questioning like how much do I need this like partner in my life to do these things with? And honestly, I still haven't decided. Like I'm very careful about entering relationships. I just don't enter them willy-nilly. I don't even date willy-nilly.
but
And,
okay, I feel like the question though isn't just about romance. It's like, can you go without anyone to share past experiences with? Because that's what they're going through. Is like literally, like everyone forgets everything every day, and you're the only one who carries it. And like to have anyone that you could share that with would be such an ease of burden. Like yeah, I feel like the most unrealistic moment in the entire movie is when Roy tells him that we shouldn't see each other anymore. Cause like, are you kidding me? Like he, I mean, I know he wakes up with his family and everything, but like the idea that you could never reminisce with anyone about anything, no shared experience. Like, I just feel like things are kind of meaningless when they're not shared, right?
excellent point, and especially with like the trauma that this situation creates, like you should have someone in your life that you share this traumatic ongoing experience with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I like how he kind of admits that like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm codependent, but like maybe that's okay, because we see an interesting arc with him where he is ambivalent. He's reached a place of ambivalence at the beginning where he's got a resigned acceptance to everything that's going on, right? And then when he gets to share it, he's like, he very quickly realizes how amazing it is just to be able to share experience with anyone. And that the idea of losing that is like he can't go back to being ambivalent anymore. You know, he's like he's tasted something better, and when it's deprived of him, he's just like, holy shit, I can't live without it, right? And the idea that they could flesh it all away by going to tomorrow, I think, is a really interesting premise. That like, you know, if you got to share this with somebody that you cared about, would you want to stay? Or would you want tomorrow to happen? I mean, what do you guys? What's your take on that? Because that is kind of the dilemma that he has at the end, right?
All right, now that you said all that and you made me think about this way more logically than I was, yes, I definitely would want to like go into the next day, but I would also want to bring that person that I experienced this with me, right? Because at the end of the day, like I just said, it's a traumatic experience, and like it when you go through a traumatic experience with someone, you completely become entangled with them. I think in a healthy way, but it also depends on how you do it. And so you want to bring,
Context.
yeah, context. And so you want to bring them with you because now you forever share this bond, right?
Because yeah, if she goes and he doesn't go with her, then no one else has a point of reference. Like literally, no one else she ever meets will be able to relate.
Right.
You know, they have something that only they can relate to, even more than
Package deal.
yeah, even more than in a typical trauma. Because like in real world traumas, chances are there is somebody out there who can relate to you. And like maybe you won't find them, but at least there's some comfort in the idea that like I could you can find, you know, I mean that's why we have support groups, you know, because people who've gone through personal traumas, you know, like you need to share it, right? Like sharing gives us purpose and gives us meaning and gives us the most fulfillment that I think we get out of life. So the idea of never being able to share experience with people is hell, right? Like it is a terrifying experience. Um, and you can kind of, I feel like it's very easy when you start thinking about it on this level to relate to his character, like to Niles, like because Sarah has a very different experience, right? She never had to deal with an eon of loneliness first, so of course he's going to be more codependent. But I like that he also like is able to admit that. Like there is a maturity in the way that he confesses to her at the end, in that like, you know, he's like, yeah, it's fucked, but like I still like you, and yes, if tomorrow comes, I would still want want to have you around. And like it kind of asks that question of like what even is love, right? And that's a thing that most romance movies, especially romantic comedies, don't really bother to do. I think that's what I think that's what made me want to watch this movie again. Is just that it's not cut and dry about what love is.
Right. And
Right?
it's not a corny rom-com. Thank you.
It's yeah, it's a smart movie. It's not what I was expecting at all. Like The Lonely Island is typically so absurd, you know, like pop star, you know, never stopping. Was such like a ridiculous movie, and this like by comparison is like so mature and like so intelligent. It's really yeah, it's really cool.
Okay, since we brought up Roy a couple times in the last like 5 minutes, we need to talk about this being in Irvine for a little bit. Irvine. I was like, woo woo. And when they get into Irvine, I was like studying the background to see if it looked like Irvine. Part of it did not.
We see a cul-de-sac, right?
But the houses looked a little bit too different from one another for it to be Irvine, honestly.
Oh, are
like,
all the houses the same out there?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Even if they're a little bit different, like if you were like using it as a backdrop in a movie, you wouldn't be able to distinguish the difference. And even in the old parts of Irvine, it's still ticky tacky. You know, like everything looks the same.
Yeah.
And the only thing, you know, the name of these, the only thing that like stood true to me was like these long, skinny trees that we have everywhere here for some reason.
Yeah, we were trying to remember the name of them, and I'm like, they might be a fir tree, but they might not be. I forget. I used to know.
Yeah.
I just want to bring that up because like throughout the like quarantine process, I've become to appreciate this area a lot more. And so when he said, you've got to find your Irvine, like this is the safest city in America many years in a row. Our police department is required to have bachelor's degrees. They pay them really well so they can live in the neighborhood. which obviously in this country is like groundbreaking, right?
Very rare.
Very rare. Groundbreaking. Wow. What a anyways. So like I really like related to that because like I have beautiful roads. Everyone's really nice. Like my only complaint about this is it's kind of boring, but like that's what you get for living in a very safe neighborhood. And most of the businesses here are chains, which kind of upsets me just because we have like a huge diverse neighborhood, which I feel like Orange County it has, but then there are like typical like cities where it's in pockets, and then there's Irvine that's like everybody's in it. You know what I mean? Like it's a true melting pot. Whereas most toss salad.
Though I do think the line to find your Irvine is metaphorical, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's come to a level of acceptance that Niles never gets to.
Never gets.
Like he skips over that.
And then one thing I also felt, it's really silly, and it was one of the jokes where Niles asks Roy to kill him one last time so he doesn't have to sit in the traffic.
The commute. Let me beat the traffic. Beat the traffic.
Yeah. Did you feel that, Victor?
I felt that very much. I appreciated it. I think we've all been there.
In LA, because our traffic will come to a dead stop here. And in LA, like there's traffic, it's constantly there, but it like moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah.
So we're coming close to our time. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring something up about the end of the movie. And it's the fact that Niles' last day, he steals a car and he convinces another man that he is his long lost child. And these are the things that are permanent when they go to tomorrow. Like she's like lives out a proper last day. She's, touching wedding speech to her sister. Mm-hmm. And he just causes more mayhem that is likely to follow them. Like he straight up stole a dude's truck. Like you go to jail for that. Can you imagine going through all that and then you come out and they're like, you're under arrest for Grand Theft Auto. And
just can't escape it.
Yeah, I feel like a little bit reckless on his last day. I don't know. Do you guys have other final thoughts about the movie or anything?
I do, but I don't know where they went on my little thing.
Oh, things disappeared?
Yeah, they disappeared.
I still see a lot of stuff.
May go first while I figure this out.
I'm just glad that for some reason, I don't know why, but I thought that it wasn't the movie wouldn't tell us the end because I felt like I said again, everything's all questions and it's left for you to interpret it.
I thought so.
And there's a moment like when the cave or whatever explodes and it kind of starts to go black. I thought that was going to be the end, and I was so mad.
I was right there. I thought credits.
Exactly. That's what I thought too. I was mad.
Me too. I was so fucking mad. I was like, you can't do this to me. And then I sat there and I was like, you better come back.
I'm just satisfied it worked out.
So, okay, real quick.
They leave you hanging with it though. Like it was smart. Good filmmaking on their part. To drag it out a little bit. I think it was good tension, and like they could have ended it, and it would have still worked. But I do think the ending that they gave us was a good one.
It was satisfying.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rochelle. I'm sorry if I could.
Okay, so Victor was definitely excited about the end, according to his notes. So he likes that J.K. Simmons got a happy ending. Yes, Victor?
Yes.
He's the J.K. Simmons character. Roy is the one that we're just like most clear about what's going to happen because they set it up. So towards the end, when they're figuring out how to get out of here, the whole time I was thinking, what about Roy?
And they set up with the phone call, which I totally overlooked when I first watched it.
Me too. Yeah.
It went over my head. But then at the end, you see Roy come up to Niles and start asking him about their situation, and Niles doesn't remember him. So we learn that he does get out, which I thought was cool. But then at the end with Niles and Sarah, it's really left up to interpretation, like what happens, because basically what happens is they're sitting in a pool that's not theirs. The owners
But they do tell us it's November 10th.
They do tell us it's November 10th, but then it's like, that's it. So, like, does this mean that everything works out? Does it stay true to the tone of the movie?
I feel like they're so comfortable. They feel so comfortable with each other that it really felt like a happy ending to me. Go ahead, Victor.
No, I agree with you, John. I think it was a complete happy ending. That's why I feel like after I thought that the credits were after I thought it was finished, I'm happy that it all worked out. I feel like everyone got the ending that you wanted them to get, and I can't ask for more.
Yeah. I do feel like there was another conversation we could have had about Roy in that, like, I expected something very different from that plot line.
From him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really was surprised when he went to visit him and he was like apologetic, but also just kind of like wanted to keep doing his own thing. It was a very interesting turn because she essentially is right? She's like, you have to deal with this.
Yeah.
And I thought it would just escalate, but instead it didn't.
Yeah. Instead, her goal was met, and he left him alone. You know.
I was really shocked by that actually, because there could have been a whole other tangent with that Roy storyline, and like, I almost expected it because of the history with the Lonely Island, in that they usually are much more absurd. And like it says a Lonely Island production right at the beginning, so it's them. And so like I was expecting, especially after he gets shot with the arrow early on, that like we were gonna go down. I thought we were gonna go down the violence and war rabbit hole for a little bit with Roy, but instead they kind of went this just much more personal, like emotionally mature route, which was. I thought refreshing. It was nice. Like there were all these surprises throughout the movie. Highly recommend. I think.
Okay, real quick. I want to. One of our members, movie files in our Facebook group, the Movie Club Collective, which you should totally join on Facebook, brought up that it was not filmed in Palm Springs, and he seemed pretty upset about it.
He did seem upset about it. He's like, they should have filmed it in Palm Springs.
He's a resident of Palm Springs and a native of Palm Springs,
Gotcha.
So I get the pride for sure.
He wants the film money to go there, to the town.
Yeah. Which I totally understand. Like, I'm from California. I feel the same way.
I don't know what the tax breaks are, like, I don't know what the film incentives are or are not in Palm Springs, so it's hard to comment, but...
I would assume it's expensive, but do you guys think it should have been filmed in Palm Springs? To be honest with you, I thought it was. I thought it was filmed in Palm Springs, except for certain parts, which I knew they wouldn't allow, like the open fire and things like that.
The Southern California desert looks so samey. Yeah, like, it just... There's, like, God knows how many thousands of square miles that all look identical.
Minus the little pocket of Joshua Tree.
Yeah. Minus the little Joshua Tree pocket. Where did you say it was actually filmed?
Oh, hold up. Palmdale and...
I felt like I had...
Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
Santa Clarita was probably Irvine.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
that makes sense. Because that's like suburbs, but it's maybe not as, I guess ticky-tacky is probably the best, the best description. I hate those lots, those housing lots where every house is identical. Oh, suburban sprawl, it's the worst.
Irvine.
So yeah, that didn't bother me. I thought it was filmed here. I could see why he was upset, but I was like, dude, it's low budget. Like, chill.
Yeah, I'm pragmatic. I don't need. It's like, if that was how you could get it made, then that's how you get it made.
Like, and at least Palm Springs get the attention.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's named after Palm Springs. Chill.
Yeah.
And sorry to tell you guys, but like most films are not filmed where they're set. So
yeah. Also, side note, when I looked up posters for this movie, there were a lot of Palm Springs ads that came up that looked like they could have been the poster for this movie. Like, all of them. I was like, the poster that they came up with actually looks a lot like whoever does the tourism ads for Palm Springs. Like, it looks just like, these lazy desert images, sometimes with a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like Palm Springs.
So Like, go watch this movie. Watch it multiple times.
Yeah.
It is absolutely beautiful. Like, the acting jumps off screen to me. Where's my Google Docs?
Yeah, Kristen Milioti she is aces in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, I'm probably
And Andy Samberg too. Like, he's gotten so much better with age. Like, he really, like, he doesn't do his same shtick every time. Like, he knows how to switch it up. And I was first impressed with him really with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where like he was so different from how he was in SNL. And like, this is very different from any of that as well. So I just also props to Andy Samberg for constantly improving as an actor.
Yeah.
Go watch this film. The dance scene is like one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time, and we all need a good laugh right now. And I do think that this film felt a lot bigger than it was. You know?
Yeah, that like, dance perfect for the TikTok generation.
Yes, it is.
Right? Victor Adame, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me again. It's always a pleasure. It was great. I love go watch Palm Springs. It won't disappoint.
Awesome. Rochelle, thank you, of course, as always, for co-hosting. To the folks out there, please give us a like. It does seem to be helping when we get those thumbs ups. You know, any percentage of viewers that give us the thumbs up goes a long way to helping us. We are at 94. We're trying to get to like 100 is our benchmark. 100 subscribers. So we're getting closer. If you are in the movie group or, you know, you're watching this and haven't subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. We don't spam you with stuff. We have one video a week. And yeah, it goes live. You can watch it later. I'm considering doing an audio version of the podcast. There hasn't been a ton of response, but some of our group has at least expressed that they prefer audio. So give us a little time and maybe we'll start hosting these for audio. But until then, yeah, give us a subscribe, give us a like.
Comment, please. Comments really help, even if it's just like an emoji.
Yeah, or like a yay, or like I hated this film, I loved this film. If you have theories about how their multiverse works, let us know.
Or just want to tell us what a bright future Victor has.
I would appreciate it. Don't be shy with those.
Yeah.
All right. I am John Olson. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Really just Instagram, John and Paradox. But follow the show at Instagram and Twitter at Views in Paradox. Join the Facebook group, which is the Movie Club Collective. Rochelle, any last words where they can find you, stuff like that?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram at Rochelle Racine, like it's spelled on the screen below me. You'll start seeing like a lot of my acting work there. I finally worked up the bravery to start posting. I appreciate
I respect that.
It took some soul searching.
It's tough. It's tough to put yourself out there.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And like, again, please join the, why can't I think of the word, Facebook group.
Yeah.
And we'd love a like and we'd love a comment. So.
All right. So we've probably scared you off all by now. So without further ado, I will say,
Victor.
Watch more movies.
Victor.
What?
Yes.
I already gave him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you did.
Right? All right.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, cool. Watch more movies. That's your cue, Rochelle.
Oh, happy viewing. I thought you had already exited.
No,
That's a wrap.
All right, now we're done.
Now we're done.
My internet